mean, not only is it one guy, but you're seeing pressure and tackles for losses across the board. The outside linebacker room looks as strong as it's been in a number of years. Aziz, Johnson, let's throw in Adam Anderson in there in that mix. Nolan Smith has come in, and his motor is nonstop. Has he been making plays off technique alone? No, but that's okay. Everybody needs a little dog in them, and he's relentless. So I think you continue to build off things like that, and they complement one another. So that's an area of strength that I think is only going to help them and carry them into some of the bigger games that you'll see down the road.
For those of you who normally watch on YouTube, it seems like we're up and running and doing well there now. So thanks for making us aware of that. We appreciate you being part of our Marlow's matchup here tonight, presented by Marlow's Tavern. A couple other comments. Bobby Leathers, I mentioned the situation with Devontae Wyatt. Michael Barnett spoke to reporters this week. He says those defensive tackles don't get enough credit for how they contribute to some of these overall havoc plays. Anyway, you've battled against guys like that in practice and in games the entirety of your career. We celebrate the Nolan Smiths. We celebrate those guys coming off the edge. Those guys in the interior, what are you seeing from them? I think part of the reason why the Georgia guys may not get enough credit right now is because it is a diverse group. They're playing a lot of guys there. And we have, other than maybe Jordan Davis, we haven't seen the true leaders on field and vocally. We haven't seen them maybe emerge yet. But what have you seen from the interior of that defensive line?
Well, it's been such a platoon. There's been a number of guys that they've utilized. But what you see is a push in the pocket and penetration. I mean, the two things that affect whether a quarterback can step up. If you've got those edge rushers that have speed to get around the corners, if the quarterback can step up, it does them no good. They're still just washed past. What I've seen is penetration from those defensive tackles. I think they're athletic enough to get on the edge of some of these interior offensive linemen and push so that they're creating plays for the outside linebackers. He brings up a great point. It's got to be a cohesive effort. If one guy wins, and you can battle as an offensive lineman, we know you can battle, and as long as everybody else is solid, there's a place for the quarterback to step off and sneak into that won't affect you as much. But when that interior D-line is penetrating and that quarterback can't step up, it causes real problems.
Let me mention one more series of comments before we hear from Georgia linebacker Azeez Ojulari. James Crump and Nate Thomas essentially mentioning the same thing, and I'll admit, I give a lot of opinions. Some of them are going to be wrong. A lot of them are. One of the things I was wrong about, Trayvon Walker, I've always been of the belief that this was going to be an elite player by the time his Georgia career was done. I was skeptical, though, of how quickly he could do that as a freshman at the defensive line position in the SEC, just given how challenging it is in this conference. And yet, through 2 games, or I should say, will be 3 games on Saturday. Now, it's only been 1 SEC game, but through 2 games, he's pretty clearly a part of Georgia's plans. They're not playing him now. They don't plan on playing him later on in the season. The fact that that young man is also part of this too, that's exciting because he's as athletic a defensive lineman as I've ever seen Georgia bring into this program.
I think that's what he brings to the table, that athleticism. I mean, he's going to put on mass. He's going to put on that power and strength that you see from your more conventional inside defensive lineman. But what I've seen, I mean, he's on kickoff team. You don't put a guy on kickoff team as a D lineman unless they can run. And I think when he's in defense, we've seen more of the same of he's been able to get on the edge of some of the interior guys. You see it probably a little more in the NFL where they'll be able to move some defensive tackles inside because it makes a little bit of a challenge for your interior guys that are used to more power. I think that's what Walker's bringing to the table right now is his athleticism. He'll bring more mass and power as his game develops in the offseason when he's training as a collegiate athlete and not straight out of high school. But his athleticism is undeniable and something that they're utilizing now.
It's our Marlow's matchup. That's John Stinchko. My name is Brandon Adams. 1 week from today, we're really excited about making our debut at the Marlow's in Peachtree Corners. It'll be our first Marlow's broadcast of the 2019 season. We'll do it exactly a week from today at exactly this time, 6 to 8 p.m. at the great Peachtree Corners location. Of course, Peachtree Corners is one of the great neighborhoods here in the Atlanta area, and right the center of that neighborhood is our friends at Marlow's Tavern. Can't wait to do the Marlow's matchup live from there next week. Let me give you the address. It's 5210 Town Center Boulevard in Peachtree Corners. Once again, 5210 Town Center Boulevard in Peachtree Corners. John and I will do a live broadcast. We'll hang out after that. We'll talk and we'll take your questions and comments both in the room there that night. We'd love to chat, do a little Georgia football with you, kind of a relaxed, kind of off-the-record conversation. That'll be a lot of fun. John, I know you've been with us on a couple of these, and you're always great in this environment, and people always seem to have a good time. I can't wait to be in Petrie Corners next week.
Well, there's two things that we miss in this environment. One is the great food.
That's exactly right.
And the second is the fan interaction in person.
Yeah, they won't let me bring a studio audience into our Dog Nation World headquarters. Maybe one of these days I'll get my way.
See if we can
we'll have a
work up
little
to
applause or something like that. We don't have a studio audience in here right now. That's a good point.
Yep. So those two things, the good food and
That's
the interaction with the fans and just the Dog Nation. They ask great questions,
Sure.
which, we get a little piece of that
That's
in the comment section here, but in person it's a step up.
Well, speaking of applause, you know who got a lot of applause on Saturday was Georgia linebacker Azeez Ojulari. And after the game, of course, he wasn't going to take all the credit for himself. He was also sharing that as well, what he thought about Nolan Smith and others. The havoc plays that Georgia's been a part of here in 2019, well, Ojulari's been certainly leading the way on many of those. Here is what he had to say about his defense after the game against Murray State on Saturday as a part of our Marlow's matchup.
Man, it's just hard work, dedication, just staying focused. It's just knowing that just work coming in to work every week, just knowing that good things can happen and just doing it for the team and just knowing that we got places that we could go and big things we could do.
Azeez, what's one thing you'd like to clean up defensively from this game?
Defensively, I'll say limit the explosives plays, the big plays that we had, and just get everybody on the same page as we move on with the season.
How do you think the havoc rate is going to grade out for you guys?
This game, I feel like the havoc rate will be pretty high. This game, pretty much, we created a good amount of havoc today. I think so. I believe so.
Nolan Smith, I think he had 1.5 sacks in the first half. You always say motor, but what is it else about him that is allowing him to get in and get these early reps?
That physicalness of him knowing is what to do, him just coming in every week just ready to work and just ready to compete no matter what. He just goes out there and gives relentless effort no matter what. So it's just paying off.
Azeez, everybody noticed the one-handed catch from Pickens during the fall. Is he known more for what he did today, the vertical shots that you saw in fall camp? Is he known more for that or the trick catches?
Man, I just feel like he could do whatever. He could do anything, to be honest. I feel like he could do anything they want him to do. He's just that good of a player, I believe. We've been seeing it in practice. He's coming out here. He showed it today, so it was just like he could do anything they asked him to.
You mentioned earlier in one of your statements that this was your first start here in Sanford. Personally, that clicked with you a little bit. What does that mean?
Man, it's just a blessing to be here. Just the electricness of the stadium, the kickoff. It was just a blessing to be out here for the first game, or the first home game. It was just phenomenal. Just coming out there, knowing the fans got your back, the crowd is pumping, you're ready to go. It's just great.
What's your favorite moment from one of your teammates today? Was it Zamir? Who had the play that really opened your eyes today?
Play of the open dry. I'll say that's tough. A lot of boys balled out, so I like how Zamir got his first touchdown for sure. So my boy Zamir came through, the hard work, ACLs, came out here, balled out. He just works, man. He just works hard every day. He just keeps his head down, just works. He's a hard worker, so it's paying off.
I think you had a great view of JR's touchdown. Tell me what you saw there.
Man, they threw it out to the right, a quick screen. He fumbled the ball. We all said, "Oh, is that the ball?" JR right by him, picked it up. We just, let's go. I was thinking about picking it up, but JR was right there ahead of me. So I was like, all right, let's go. We going. Let's just go. Let's go. Let's go score. And I was just happy. Hit the helmet, all that. Got hype at the end. It was just great.
I love Azeez Ojulari's personality. He's got such a warm spirit about him. And listen, when you get a chance to touch the football in a game, if you're not quarterback, center, running back, wide receiver, you're just not touching the football all that much. So I love the fact that Azeez is excited about the idea of seeing one of his defensive teammates getting a chance to do the scoop and do the score, because let's face it, that's what it's all about, getting your hands on that ball.
As much as they probably heard about havoc and creating turnovers and big plays, they're fired up about it.
Yeah.
I mean, his personality is awesome, isn't it?
Oh, it's
the
great.
energy he brings, the excitement he has for the rest of his guys, and when you saw J.R. Reed scoop and score,
Right.
he was surrounded by those guys. They were all fired up.
By the way, we'll hear from J.R. Reed on that topic later on in our program. By the way, I've also kind of touched a nerve. Peter Jeffrey Wilson, Joe Bram, and others saying that maybe we should have a studio audience here in our Dog Nation War headquarters studios. I will tell you that I'd probably drive my employer and my colleagues crazy because I essentially violate every, we don't necessarily do TV around here, but I essentially violate every law of TV as it is. I'm always talking to people who are off camera. I'm always kind of, it's like a lot of the things that you're not supposed to do in TV. I'm just pretty much just kind of, violating those laws anyway. So if we had a studio audience over here, there's no telling, how much interaction we doing like we're going to be doing next Thursday at the Marlows and Peachtree Corners.
Well, if you want a sample of it, come out to Marlows
right.
next week, and we can make some of that work, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So let me, since you heard some of that from Azeez Ojulari a moment ago, let me transition to the offensive side of the ball here for a moment and talk about some of those breakout guys offensively. One of the things that Ojulari mentioned was George Pickens. I know when you were this on Dog Nation Daily this week, we talked about Pickens, and this is the part that's fun for fans right now. With all due respect to Swift and Fromm and the guys who've been here and are going to lead the way for a championship push later on in the season, it's the guys you haven't seen yet that really are drawing people out in the heat of a September Saturday at Sanford Stadium. That's really the topic of conversation around tailgates and drives home and Sunday lunches and everything else. And Pickens, I think, was at the forefront of that this past week.
Well, I think if Demetrius Robertson had his breakout game week 1, I think George Pickens had his in week 2. Just his playmaking ability, the excitement that he brings to the game, the same energy that you saw from Azeez, just the overall spirit of him. I think you saw that on display on the field with Pickens. He's wanting to make those big plays. I also saw him enjoy blocking. Some of those down blocks where it was springing the runs out to his side, he loved it. He liked to get in there and mix it up and thump a little bit. The second guy that really showed up and showed out was Eli Wolf. How about that guy?
I love to see that.
He had the fumble early, but he was trying to make plays and had the opportunity to come back and make more after that.
Well, I just think that when you have to respect Pickens on the outside, I think, and I'm no ex-coach, I'm no ex-player. I'm obviously just a guy that's watched this sport my entire life. But when you're respecting the sideline, the middle of the field is going to be more open, which is where tight ends do their work. In some respects, it is the most kind of simple description of how football is supposed to go. But you're opening up opportunities in the middle of the field because you have guys like Pickens streaking down the sideline.
Anytime you can put a defense on alert to all of your options, that's advantage offense. When the defense can say, here's the 2 things we need to take away from an offense, man, that is huge for them. The run game, you saw the way we're doing the jet sweeps and just the stretching those edges, that'll open up the off-tackle seams that you've been relying on in years past. Same thing with the pass game. If you've got a vertical threat that can go up over a cornerback, that's going to pull a safety. It's going to stretch those cornerbacks deeper. That opens up some of the underneath routes for a tight end.
And, of course, it wasn't just pass catchers for Georgia on Saturday. It was also Zamir White finding the end zone for the first time in his UGA career. And after the game, Georgia quarterback Jake Fromm talked about that, what he liked from Pickens, what he wants to see more of from the freshman wide receiver, the same kind of fun and enjoyment that so many of his teammates got in seeing the success for Zamir White. Always a great opportunity to check in with the Georgia quarterback Jake Fromm, and here's a part of our Marlows matchup. Let's also hear from him right now, too.
I thought we could have came out a little bit faster, but I thought we played really well in the second quarter, and I thought guys, when they had the opportunity to go out and play, I thought they played well and they handled the offense very well.
What does it do for you starters to see those reserves, those younger players?
Yeah, man, it's awesome, man. Come out, execute the offense, let those guys go and have experience, because a lot of guys can help our team. They can help the team through practice, pushing the defensive guys and pushing the older guys, and also, you never know when your number's going to be called and who's going to have to play. So it's an opportunity for everybody to go out and get better.
And those freshmen on defense, especially.
Oh, yeah.
Smith and those guys.
Oh, it's huge, man. Yeah, those guys just need in-game experience, and you don't, always get that. You don't have the number of reps you want, and in this game, it allowed those guys to do that and go out and play and get experience.
Is this a confidence game for some of those young receivers?
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity for them to go out and make some plays, I think the guys went out and made some plays, so it's awesome for them to kind of get some confidence going and come out and get ready to play better next week.
Were you as impressed by that Pickens catch as everybody else was?
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. That was awesome to see.
What does he bring to the offense, Jake?
Yep. Explosiveness. He's a big-time guy. He's a really good player, really good kid, and he needs to clean up some of the little things, some of the little details, and we're talking to him about that, and it's awesome, but I think he has a tremendous potential, and I hope he can go out and play better next week.
What did it mean for the team to see Zamir get in the end zone?
Yeah, it's awesome, man. Awesome for Zamir to have what he's been through, for him to go out and be able to score, I think it's awesome. He's playing really tough right now, running the ball really, really strong. We're still, as the offense as a whole, we need to work on ball security, but he's playing tough, running tough, and hope he continues to do that.
Jake, I'm sure you've already been asked about George Pickens, but what did you see from him in his first catch, his first touchdown?
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, he's explosive, for him to go out and, be able to catch the ball. Hopefully he can get better, week to week.
That diving catch he had down the sideline, you threw it up and you saw he came down.
Mm-hmm.
What were you saying when you saw he came on?
Hey, let's go. What's the next play? Because we had talked about going fast, after we hit a big one. So I was just trying to get everybody lined up and run the next play.
Catches like that from him when they started to become routine a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, that's just what you see out of him, in practice, and it's now starting to carry over. Yeah, I mean, turnovers. There's no reason for us to ever turn the ball over. As a quarterback standpoint and as a ball carrier standpoint, play a little bit cleaner. Some of the protection things we need to work on that second, third down, the second drive. So be able to clean that up and really just play a little bit cleaner. But we scored points and we executed on a lot of things. And I think we were well over 85% on third down. So that's always good to see and good to have.
How cool is it to see Sets and Bennett sort of get out there and get some playing time and play, well at times?
Yeah, man, Stet's is awesome. He's worked hard for it, something he's earned. So it's awesome to go out and see him, play well and execute the offense.
So one of the things you hear from from Georgia quarterback Jake Fromm there is some thoughts on George Pickens in terms of, obviously there's a lot to like, diving catches, everything else. Everyone paid attention to that. But, Fromm also kind of challenges him there too to say, hey, there's still some things we're working on. Presumably one of the things that Fromm means by that is late in the game, Pickens gets shoved out of bounds and kind of tosses the football in the direction of one of the Murray State players. And I've talked about that moment a lot this week, John, what Fromm said about it, what Kirby Smart said about it. And while you don't want that from one of your players, I'll always take an energetic player that has to be calmed down more so than a guy that maybe doesn't love the game, that has to be, pressed and prodded along. I'm not making light of, things along those lines because, obviously in games that matter, every yard counts and you don't want penalties. But give me an energetic guy that needs to be channeled more so than a lethargic guy that you got to try to kick in the behind to get him moving.
That's right. I work with a guy, he talks about, I'd rather lead with the bit than the whip.
Yeah.
You want to restrain guys, and you love the passion. I like the fact that he wants to be out there. He loves the game of football. That's evident. But you got to clean that stuff up. Mm-hmm. It's okay against a Murray State where a 15-yard penalty isn't going to be a killer. You throw the ball and it's the SEC championship game, that's a problem.
Right.
So.
Because there was also the moment of the Vanderbilt game that some fans saw where he absolutely put someone in the turf, just put someone in the turf, which is more funny than serious to me. But nonetheless, it's an example of the kind of thing you got to do to control yourself.
That's right. And in high school, you get away with stuff like that. Let's be honest. So he's learning, and you can't do that, especially the big games as you go. It'll come with maturity. Mm-hmm. I also think Fromm is talking about the details of the game. Mm-hmm. I mean, his athleticism is covering up for maybe some of the details that he's missing. Is it route running? Is it alignment? Is he 1 yard outside of the numbers he's supposed to be 2, just on alignment alone? I don't know those things, but when you listen to your quarterback say there's things we can do a little cleaner, a little neater, that means I love the athlete. I love the fact that he's a playmaker and we need him out there doing what he does, but there's things we can clean up. And that's any player ever to take the field. As a young guy, there's just more of it.
Jerry Swafford, let me take care of a couple pieces of business for a moment. Jerry Swafford, watching on our Facebook comments section, noticing our hover helmet spinning here on the desk. He said, I love that. I got to get me one of those. Well, the website to go to is hoverhelmets.com. I know a lot of you have been reaching out, and I know they're selling these things fast. And so some of you said, hey, I may have checked in there. They didn't have one. They may have been sold out. The good news is they're getting restocked and getting reloaded and getting ready for a big rush of Georgia fans all season long, kind of looking for that. So hoverhelmets.com for one of these really cool things for yourself. To me, if you've got like an office, or you got like the basement where you have like every Georgia piece of paraphernalia that exists, I think the hover helmet's kind of the next thing here. It's as Nicole House said in our Facebook comment section earlier, it's almost like a space age technology type deal. This thing's floating in midair. I have no idea the science by how that works, but it is a cool thing, and I'm glad to see Jerry and others making notice of that, and we appreciate you going to hoverhelmets.com to try to find your own.
I think you said it at a good speed, too. So
I did.
You kind of rotated it.
Well, the truth is, I kind of knocked into it right before the show started, so I'm trying to get it fixed back. It's kind of a delicate balance for me sometimes when we're having a good time with it. Also, Winston Mock says, in our Facebook comment section that his daughter Marie is watching for the first time tonight. So Marie, thanks for checking in on the Dog Nation video channels, and hope you're enjoying the Marlow's matchup. And of course, we appreciate Marlow's Tavern for making the Marlow's matchup possible. Let me talk about another Georgia playmaker on offense for a moment. That's DeAndre Swift. And in the video you're about to hear from Swift, he's going to obviously compliment some of the work some of the other backs for Georgia were doing on Saturday. But John, the other thing that DeAndre is going to get into here in a moment is the lack of maybe playing for all 4 quarters. Against Vanderbilt, it's big, fast start, and it kind of slows down the second half. This game, 7-7 after the first quarter. Georgia goes on to get the easy win. I've said a million times this week, I'm actually not all that bothered by that. I think we have a tendency sometimes to make too much of a cluster of bad plays at the very beginning of a game, the cluster of bad plays at the very end of a game. We have a tendency to sort of create a narrative around that might not necessarily exist. Saturday for me is an example of that, but Swift wasn't the only player to talk about the desire to want to clean that up and do that a little bit better. Before we hear from him on that topic, would you mind sharing your thoughts on what you think when a heavily favored Georgia is kind of scuffling around in a 7-7 game after 1 quarter against an overmatched Murray State?
Well, you go into the game as a player knowing that if I'm a starter, let's produce well, produce quickly, and we'll get off the field. And that didn't happen. I think that's fair to say. In the first quarter, it's 7-7 against Murray State. Not what you wanted, but it's football. You're going to make those mistakes. 63 points at the end of the day, that's pretty strong. I think the point is, can you play cleaner? Fromm mentions it. You referenced DeAndre. Everybody knows that you want to go out there and execute each series, end up with 7, and be 3 and out on defense. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the overall game, especially against a lesser opponent, they're coming in juiced. I mean, that's a big opportunity for any player to play in Sanford Stadium in front of a crowd like that. They're going to give their best. They can't stand toe-to-toe for 60 minutes against Georgia football team. That's just not going to happen. So you're getting their best punch out of the first quarter. Is Georgia's punches stronger than Murray State's? Without a doubt. And I hear both sides of the story. I'm not concerned that it's 7-7 at the end of the first quarter. You can learn from it. You can clean things up, but that's not something to hit the alert button on.
Devin Glenn, our YouTube comment section, says DeAndre Swift is the best running back in the country. Well, if that's true, then we ought to hear from him right now. In fact, let's enjoy Swift from after the game against Murray State as a part of our Marlow's matchup.
Thank you,
Hey, Dre, what's
So
up?
how you doing?
Kenny McIntosh getting some run today.
Yeah.
You're at the point now where you like those young bucks, right? What did you see out of him so far?
A lot of energy. Ran hard, ran well today. I think they robbed him of a touchdown too. Did a great job.
The young fellas had games. I think George Pickens with the big explosive shot downfield. What did you think about that play?
Amazing. I mean, he do it every day in practice, so we know what he can do. Just for him, the young guys, all the young guys, Dom, Blaylock, Zamir, all them young guys just come in here and produce how they did today. We just so happy for him.
Nolan Smith, man, he had a sack and a half today. How much havoc does he cause in practices right now?
A lot. I mean, he's that fast. He's an animal. He carries a lot of havoc, so he brings it out here on Saturdays.
How happy were you for Zamir in his first run?
Amazing. So glad to see him get his first touchdown. He was happy. We all happy for the young man.
What do you guys say on the side after that? Do you say that's one of many, or he's a?
I told him one of many. He was like, "Bro, I scored. I'm like, "I told you he was going to score. There's many more to come."
DeAndre, give me one thing you'd like to clean up out of this win.
We need to stay focused for 4 quarters. We was kind of sloppy at times. We need to sustain more drives. Just play the Georgia standard all the time.
It's amazing what kind of veteran leader Swift sounds like when he speaks compared to the time that he's grown up in this program over the course of the last couple of years. Also really happy there for Zamir White, and I know you feel the same way. Seeing him finally get a chance to be rewarded and being on the field, I mean, that was a special moment for a lot of his teammates to know that he found that end zone on Saturday.
And I think it speaks to the culture that's been created in this locker room. You probably go back to, before Sony and Nick were even there, but the care that they take for the next guy up. I mean, Zamir White, everybody knows his story, and DeAndre Swift is the guy this year, and he's wanting to see a competitor for carries excel. And I think that's the culture, a more indication of how healthy it is, rather than, it's like a big brother. You want him to succeed. Now, later in the season, you're not going to have enough carries to spread it across all 4 guys, 5 guys, as it was against Murray State. It's going to tighten down to 2 or 3 that have most of the shares. I'm not saying you don't see him at all, but it's going to be the DeAndre Swift show, just like it was with Sony and Nick in years previous. So it's good that the environment that they've created, and you have to like the leadership and the culture of the locker room, or at least what you see from it from the little snippets that we get.
If you're just joining us, I want to invite you once again to come out and join us a week from today. We're live at the Marlow's Tavern in Peachtree Corners for our first Marlow's broadcast of the 2019 season. We've been doing these now for a number of years. Our first one for this year comes up a week from today. It's 5210 Town Center Boulevard in Peachtree Corners, starting at 6 p.m. next Thursday. Once again, 5210 Town Center Boulevard in Peachtree Corners. We're getting ready for Georgia Notre Dame that following Saturday, doing it with you in style there at the Marlow's Tavern in Peachtree Corners. Chef-inspired food, craft cocktails, remarkable world-renowned service and hospitality. Marlow's Tavern is known for all of that, and they want to show that to you next Thursday. So please come on by and see us. For the folks in Peachtree Corners, I can't wait to be in your neighborhood next week. And for those of you who kind of sort of travel to join us from wherever you may be coming from, what a great time that's going to be 1 week from today. Marlow's Tavern in Peachtree Corners for our Marlow's Matchup live broadcast there that night. You know, Matt Talley in our Facebook comment section, going back to the DeAndre Swift interview, says, everybody on the team is so humble and likes seeing their teammates make plays. I love seeing that. Well, Matt, another example of that humility kind of comes on the other side of the ball. Georgia safety J.R. Reed, who was really one of the heroes from this past Saturday, he got a chance to scoop up a football and take it into the end zone. He was certainly proud of that, but he was also plenty proud of some of his teammates too. Our buddy Jeff Sintel in the victorious Georgia locker room with J.R. Reed after the game. Let's also see that as we get ready for Arkansas State on Saturday here on the Marlow's Matchup.
What resembles that? Jared, what's one thing that was what you wanted out of this game, and what's one thing that's what you got to get better at it?
Everyone to play to a standard, man, and I think we did that as the game went on. One of the things I want to get out of it is to just play faster, you know, start fast, finish fast.
And JR, what's your last touchdown? And when was the last one you got one of those?
Florida.
Florida, huh?
Yeah, about 2 years ago.
What's that feel like?
It's amazing to score on defense, man, because you don't get it a lot.
I was just going to ask, any thoughts to following that ball? Were you picking it up and scoring on it?
Oh, no, I'm scooping it all the time, man. If no one's around, I'm going to scoop it. If there's some people around, I got to fall. But scooping is a skill.
Could you feel that no one was around you?
Yeah, you know, you just hustle to it, and I didn't see any of their players around it. Just went down and scooped the ball.
Was there enough havoc today, JR, for you? What do you think?
I mean, you can always improve on havoc, man. But we did a good job. I'm pretty proud of the havoc plays. I think we left some out there that we can create and let happen. But, you know, we did a great job.
So George created a lot of buzz with the big ball. Have you guys seen more of that in fall camp?
Well, yeah.
One-handed catches?
Yeah, you know, George has been a great receiver for us, and he's going to be, you know, a mismatch for some teams. And we got some great ones on the other side of George, too, like Matt Landers and Cager. Whenever those guys' numbers are called, they show up.
What are you seeing out of Nolan already, besides motor, besides getting after it?
A young guy that's ready to work and doesn't care what position he's playing. He's going to go out there and do his job.
So listen, you love the phrase that Tram Dog even mentioned this in our YouTube comment section about the Georgia standard playing up to that, and you heard JR there say, hey, there's always room for improvement, which is one of the reasons why, you know, somebody somewhere on Saturday, and it's Saturday where you've got a lot of ranked teams playing unranked opponents, someone's going to be in a game they don't want to be in, closer, later than it's supposed to be. I think, and maybe this is wishful thinking, but I truly believe that we've seen Georgia back this up. Because of Georgia's desire to improve, I have a hard time seeing it be Georgia that on Saturday is in a one-score game as a 30-point favorite. I just don't see that happening for Georgia on Saturday against Arkansas State.
Well, I think you have too good of leaders to let that happen. You hear the guys that were speaking and the clips that you get. That locker room seems really healthy. You've got great guys that are trying to push and encourage and lift up and set that standard, because it doesn't come from the coaches. The coaches, if it comes from the coaches, there's a problem with leadership in your locker room. And for Georgia, you see it. J.R. Reed, Jake Fromm, the younger guys, I mean, across the board, people are buying into the standard that's set, and they're trying to live up to it and play into it. I think that's what carries teams into these more trap games, if you will, and I don't even think this would qualify.
Well, I want to finish with some offensive line talk in a moment, but let me just piggyback off that real quick. As a former player, what is the process this week of not looking ahead to Notre Dame? Because I've always been of the assumption that Georgia practices so hard, it's sort of hard to look beyond the next day on that. But there would obviously be a temptation because of just how much national attention there's going to be. CBS doing the game in prime time. There's going to be more of a pull on Georgia players and coaches because of that. How easy or difficult is it for Georgia to keep its mind off the Irish and on the Red Wolves this week?
Well, I think they do a phenomenal job of focusing on in-house. What do we have to do to get better? I also think they have amazing competition among the different position groups. So if you don't perform on Saturday, that's fine. We'll get the next guy who can.
Yeah.
That mentality
It's a really good point.
pushes you each week to perform, and I think this game is no exception. They talk about the competitiveness, and Coach Smart's constantly saying, guys are trying to earn playing time and jobs each week. Well, that creates an environment where you're less prone to slip up and overlook anyone.
Nice to see Enrique Murillo with some nice words. He's enjoying seeing John Stinchcomb as part of our Marlow's matchup. I really appreciate that, Enrique. Thanks for weighing in there on YouTube. And let me transition here to this, and this is going to be one of those things on Saturday against Arkansas State, which is going to be really interesting to see too. We saw a lot of rotating amongst offensive linemen last week. Cade Mays going to get a chance to play multiple positions. We'll hear from him on that topic coming up in a moment. Jamari Salyer back involved. We discussed last week how nice it'd be to see Salyer shaking off some health issues and being on the football field. Mays even got a chance to spell Andrew Thomas at left tackle for a little bit because obviously this program's going to keep playing football next year and Andrew Thomas is going to the NFL. What have you seen from this group in terms of the way that it's rotating? You get Xavier Truss involved a little bit on Saturday, which is a good thing to see. What have you seen through 2 games from the Georgia offensive line?
Well, I think you're developing depth. I think seeing Cade Mays' versatility is pretty awesome to watch. I mean, he played both sides of the football. He played guard and both tackles. That's a difficult transition. There's a lot of mechanics and just timing that changes when you go from interior to a tackle position and when you go from the right side to the left side. And he just shows that he's that next guy for this group. I think he's one of our better starters.
Yeah.
He's probably number 3 on my list if I were to say what I've seen based on what I've seen the first 2 weeks. Andrew Thomas, Solomon Kinley, and then I'd put Cade Mays right there as that third guy. But the development of that offensive line, Jamari Salyer needs reps. It was good for him to get out on the field. Same thing for that entire group that came in that second half, Xavier Truss included. I mean, you've got a lot of young guys that are 4 and 5 stars from the past that haven't had the opportunity, that are finally getting to get that game time action, which comes a little bit different than what you see in practice.
And really after the game, I thought Cade Mays was really interesting, potentially foreshadowing more of what we'll see this Saturday against Arkansas State, talking about some of the challenges when you move from position to position. A lot of times it's what you see across the line of scrimmage from you that makes changing these positions during a game kind of a challenge. In fact, here is a little bit from Cade Mays talking about that point and more after the game against Murray State on Saturday.
Cade, the reshuffling of the offensive line, how did you think it went so far? I mean, there was a little protection issues early, but how did you think the overall with the reshuffling of the offensive line did today?
I think it went good. We did it last week, and everything went smooth. So I think everything went well this time. We'll get in the film room and figure out what happened on that sack and figure it out and go from there.
What's the hardest part of all this position shuffling and on-the-job training at all these cross-training spots for you?
I would say, like when I'm at left tackle, really focusing on my technique there, and then having to move to right guard. It's really different out there. You're playing a speed guy and then a big strong guy in here. So just balancing that technique and remembering all the techniques that are there.
What are your thoughts on Zamir's touchdown? It was a big moment for everybody in the program today.
Oh yeah, heck yeah. That's exactly what he deserves. He's been working his butt off all offseason, so that's definitely, he deserves that one.
Cade, where does this come from? Your work rate, the way you play, nasty. Where does all that come from? Is that fatherly influence, your family? What's that come from?
Just my family. My family's always put me to work. Worked on the farm growing up. I've never really had any quit in me. So, my dad definitely instilled that in me. He played the game the same way. My little brother plays the game the same way. That's just the way we play the game.
What's something that you guys can build on from this game moving forward for the offensive line?
Definitely just polishing everything, getting in the film room and figuring out what we need to do better. Everybody communicating still, making sure we're all on the same page, all that stuff, just go in and go back to work.
A lot of young guys got in today. Who's somebody that's been standing out to you guys in practice that you were able to finally get to see in the game?
I was proud of Xavier Truss. All those guys did a great job, from right tackle to left tackle, they all did a great job. But I think X, he's really come a long way since fall camp.
Okay, baby, the most explosive play of the day was George Pickens, that big shot. Have you guys seen that type of stretch plays from him in fall camp?
Absolutely. You know, he's been going out there making a bunch of crazy plays. He's been working hard, just grinding for those. So he definitely deserves that one.
What does he add to the offense in your view?
I think he adds a vertical threat. Definitely a vertical threat that just goes up and makes plays.
That Cade was quite that tatted up. That's some pretty serious ink. He's got like what looks to be some Tennessee interstates on his arm there. That's some pretty serious ink for Mays. I didn't know he was quite bringing that to the table.
Well, he's letting you know which exit to take.
I guess so, yeah. But listen, I mean, that is a guy, and I thought you said it very well earlier. His value to Georgia right now, even though it was somewhat questionable would he even be a starter at the beginning of the season, through 2 games, because of his versatility, because of the way that he just mauls guys at whatever spot that he's playing in, his value to Georgia right now is unquestioned.
It's huge, and I think you'll get to a point where he's going to hone in on one position, and part of it is to build that communication that he was speaking to. When you're in an offensive group, you start to feel how to pick up those games. They allowed a couple sacks in both weeks so far this season. Well, you get into a spot, you start learning the guys next to you, you see things the same, you react to them because it's rote memory, that muscle memory of, once I'm picking up this tackle end game, I know where the tackle's going to be, I know how far I need to carry it, those type things. So with communication was mentioned and just chemistry, that comes with a million reps. And I think as you go through the season, it's good to have the versatility to play every spot. But it's also nice to get the consistency of the same spot, the same group of guys, and you learn how to play off one another's strengths.
So quick final thought from me as you head towards Saturday. Noon can be kind of a sleepy game time, and you could worry about a team not having a ton of focus. What I'm hearing right there is a lot of players and team-oriented goals that are still out there, even before you get to Notre Dame on September 21st, 2 Saturdays from now. My guess is we see a pretty motivated Georgia on Saturday. I don't know what kind of message you send by beating up on Arkansas State, but that doesn't mean they don't want to do it nonetheless.
I think you saw 2 things out of each person that was interviewed. One is a great passion and energy. Yeah. They're excited about playing football. We're going into week 3. There's not the grind of this is 8 games in, I'm sore, my body hurts, and I know I have to perform against a team that's not as good as we are.
Yeah.
What you see is a good passion and a desire for improvement. They recognize it wasn't perfect. They recognize that there's so much to clean up, and they don't want to be 7-7 at the end of the first quarter against a lesser opponent. They're happy for the win. They're enjoying playing the game, but there's so much more for this team. They have loftier goals. They want to be clean. They want to create this identity and be special. I think that's the recurring message that I hear, and that doesn't leave any room for a let-up in week 3.
Boy, I think that's really well said, John. Really good stuff. Before we go, I do want to turn our attention to a more serious topic and a sad note. Robert Arnaud, the former Georgia running back, obviously many of you, certainly my age, have memories of Arnaud doing a lot of hard work and good work in a Georgia uniform. And Arnaud has passed away. And John, I know you knew him personally, and so many of your friends from the Georgia teams in the past knew Arnaud as well. This is obviously, details of this are going to still be coming out, but anytime you're talking about a guy at 40 years old passing away, the circumstances are always tragic because this is way too young. I'll just give you the floor to say, what you'll remember about him and what you want Georgia fans who didn't meet him personally to be able to say.
Well, it's such a tragedy. My heart goes out to his family and his close friends. I mean, he's a phenomenal teammate. Whoever played with the guy was blessed. He was a joy to be around, and you never know what folks are going through, where they're at in life, and what's going to happen tomorrow. So reach out to those that you love, that you haven't talked to in a while, and stretch out, put an arm around them, because I know if there's so many of us, if they had the opportunity to reach out to Bert, they would do it.
Yeah.
And it hurts. It hurts. And I hadn't seen him in years, but he's a special guy. Anybody who is around him knows the joy that he brought to everyone else's life. And it's such a tragedy and a devastating loss to the Bulldog Nation to lose one of the best people that I was able to call a teammate.
And I can say on behalf of Dog Nation, obviously our prayers will be the family and for certainly every part of the UGA football community that has fond memories of having played with him and sharing a life with him. Our prayers are with you, our thoughts are with you, and certainly, to what extent that we can, we obviously say we're so sorry for this loss, and we just lift him up tonight. As obviously, this is not the news you want to be talking about on a night like this, but certainly sadness for the passing of Robert Arnaud. But I know that he'll be remembered by the guys that played with him and by the family that knew him really well. So with that said, we'll get ready to wrap up our Marlow's matchup here for tonight. We are looking forward to seeing you next week at the Marlow's in Peachtree Corners, as we'll be live there getting ready for the game against Notre Dame. And obviously you can also check out hoverhelmets.com to find out more about the hover helmet that you see spinning here on our program each and every day. We love talking about the games with you. We love getting ready for the upcoming Saturday. Thanks for doing it with us here tonight on the Marlow's matchup. We'll look forward to doing it with you in person next week at the Marlow's in Peachtree Corners. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you next Thursday, Marlow's Peachtree Corners, for our Marlow's matchup. Talk to you then.